Alrighty then, so where have I been? Well, you might have noticed that there was a bit of a fluctuation of the content. Some drawing videos came out, which I thought would be a fine experiment, just to sort of ease some content in while I was experimenting with my art. And then we did the Sonic Hurdle video, that were a lot of fun, that took a long time to make. But then, now we're sort of in a quiet period again. And that's because there isn't a lot to talk about regarding football. You know, football's still in pre-season, and I don't really fancy making pre-season videos. And there isn't much going on in the world of gaming that I want to talk about at the minute either. So there isn't really much for me to talk about, apart from something I've been doing in my own free time, a little personal project, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. So essentially, as we all know, I fucking love Dragon Ball. Right, I'm a big Dragon Ball fan. So I decided 4 years ago that I was going to make my own sort of Dragon Ball story, my own manga, you could say. And let's just say after about 2 weeks, plans fell through incredibly fast because I didn't have the time or the effort to make it, and I was drawing on paper. It wasn't going well. So since then, since the production of that fell through, I've always had the idea in the back of my head to make a story like that. And the original drafts and story I still have saved in my in my notes for Dragon Ball F, which is what I called it. The F standing for Frieza, because I wanted Frieza to be the main villain. And I don't ever want to revisit it, to be honest, because I don't think it has a lot of potential, and I thought it was pretty bad. So I then decided to make my own original story instead. Doesn't involve Goku, doesn't involve Vegeta, doesn't involve any of these characters. My own original characters, my own sort of original setting, and I've been planning this now for 3.5 years. I don't intend for this to go big, I don't intend for a bestseller or anything like that, but I just want to make something that Dragon Ball fans can enjoy and something that I'm going to enjoy making. And today I'm here to sort of show a little bit of it off, because I believe we're at a stage now where development is going decently well, and we have something to show for it at last. So the book itself is going to be called, well, I say book, I don't know what it's going to be just yet. Can I not zoom out? I don't know what it's going to be called yet, because there isn't anything to call it at the minute. Because I'm still undecided on if this is going to be more image-based or more text-based. But essentially it's going to be called F Stone Fallacy. The F remaining from the previous project, because I thought I'd be lazy and recycle. But it's actually ended up working out for the better. So F Stone Fallacy, what is it? What does it mean? So the story is centered around this gemstone called the F Stone, and the word fallacy at the bottom, you can depict that for yourself, or if you want to wait for the book to come out, you'll understand what it means eventually. And essentially it's about 3 main characters, each with their own individual goals, motivations and connections to what the F Stone is connected to as well, and essentially how they form bonds with not only each other but learn about the F Stone and learn more about the world around them. It's not going to be, Stephen King levels of peak fiction, Steven Spielberg direction, anything like that. This is just a fun project. I don't know the first thing about writing a book. I'm just writing about what's coming to my head and doing it in as best as I can, essentially. This is unscripted, so there's going to be a lot of waffling, and a lot of it's not going to make sense. So please bear with me. But basically, it's going to be divided into parts. There's going to be 4 different episodes for each individual character, and then one big meaty episode at the end of it all, which will tie everything together. And I'm debating whether or not to make that final episode into a 2-parter as well, because I intend to release one of the episodes for the characters halfway. It's designed to be a recap, a flashback, and I want someone to read that whilst they're reading the final episode. So I'm thinking of putting it into 2 parts. If not, then that's fine. I'll just do a prequel. A prequel would be beneficial, but I don't know if it will keep interest or not. I'm still debating this. Like I said, this is still in very early developmental stages. The only thing I've got going at the minute is character designs, promo arts, and a general story idea. It's still being drafted. I'm getting some first, final written drafts down, and I'm going to do about 5 for each story to make sure that I'm fully happy with the content included. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you some of the promo arts that have been made, and from that explain a little bit about the process of character design, idea behind character design, and how it's going to link with story. So before I show these, I'll do individual characters, I suppose. We'll start with Dawson, because I am absolutely fucking horrendous at naming characters. I'm just going to make sure that everything is visible here. So I'm going to make the webcam, oh dear, don't do that. Make the webcam a little bit smaller. There we go. Right, Dawson, because I'm terrible at naming. Dawson is a character based in Norse mythology, as you might have gathered from the God of War logo on his shirt. And like I said as well, this is my first time doing OC, so character design is going to be a bit lazy. As you can tell, it's just a t-shirt and tracksuit pants, because I was asked to design this character by my college teachers. I was asked to design this character after myself, and I just wore was the outfit I wore when I took the picture to design it after. Obviously, I'm not this muscular. I'm not this in shape, and my hair is a bit longer than that now. And I don't understand how I'm going to illustrate this character in some angles, to be honest, because this is supposed to be a bit of a fringe. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm ready to accept the challenge. So yeah, that was the idea of the design. But the shirt was originally just something I wore, but I decided to make it a part of the character's background, and hence this is a character set within Norse mythology. He's from Asgard, not Earth. He has relationships with the Allfather Odin as his, not servant, but something like a servant. He is given the role of Asgard's protector, which is the highest honor in my setting here, and he will be fighting by Odin's side at Ragnarok, whenever that may be. Essentially, he's a master of martial arts. He's the most skilled fighter on the lineup, and one of the most powerful as well. However, he does not have full control of his power yet, because there is a darkness within this character's heart that will essentially serve as, think of like Broly from Dragon Ball Super. Once he's out of control, he's a little bit out of control. While Dawson does not get to that stage where he's completely out of control, he can still control himself to a degree. His anger will feed this darkness, and that can lead to some very unfortunate things that other people will have to deal with. And it's something that's going to be part of his background. His mother is not any part of the story, but I've said she's a light elf from Alfheim. But his father, I'm going to use the Norse mythology figure of Mimir. This was not the original idea, however, after giving it a bit of a thought through, I thought this could work a little bit, I suppose, because in Norse mythology, Mimir is a very intelligent being, but in my story, he was more like a master Roshi, a martial arts master and teacher, and coincidentally, Dawson's father. And upon losing his father, that's when that dark side of him sort of awakens a little bit more, and he makes it his mission to sort of get revenge on the one who killed his father, which is our second character, Rizzo. Rizzo, of course, as you can tell by the hair, the design here takes inspiration from Dragon Ball and Super Saiyan. So each character's got like an individual thing that they are designed after. This wasn't my original plan for this character. This character was of course designed after somebody else as well. I was going to give them her that was more reminiscent of theirs, but this character is a Dragon Ball fan, and they requested her that is identical to Goku's when he turned Super Saiyan. So instead of going for the more modern Super Saiyan look, which is the refined hair, I decided to go for the Namek arc style hair with the very blocky look to it, because it's one of my personal favourite appearances for Super Saiyan, and that was the idea of that design essentially. But going back to Dawson for just a moment, Dawson's whole thing in his story during his episode is that the main part of the episode is that he will have a fight with the world serpent Jormungandr, and this is because I can't really think of anything else to have him do, because I don't want to bring Ragnarok into the story. That would be too long and convoluted, too much to worry about. So instead I thought, why not weave in elements of the final episode, like things we'll find out in the final episode, into his story and have him fight Jormungandr, which in my story is essentially Mother Nature. It controls nature, which is, I don't know if it's a unique take on Jormungandr or not, but it's what I'm going to go with. Jormungandr will be designed after the appearance he has in the game Smite. I'm going to take a big inspiration from that. And it's essentially just going to be a big, I think, roughly around a 5-minute fight. Reading time, 6 minutes, something like that. It'll be a fight. That's all it will be. That's the main part of this story. A fight, because Dawson is the protector of Asgard and Jormungandr is currently threatening Asgard. So let's put the skill to the test, shall we? Let's see if his training paid off. Back to Rizzo. Rizzo's whole thing is he is a regular person. However, there is something wrong with his genes that he doesn't know about, that no doctor has ever been able to diagnose, and he finds this out one night when he is trying to go home with his best friend, and upon trying to take a shortcut, his best friend is violently murdered in front of him, which will be the catalyst for his transformation into what I'm calling a superhuman. Yes, I said at the start of this video, I am very lazy with naming, and my imagination isn't exactly incredible. So yeah, this is when he transforms into a superhuman, which will increase his strength, his speed, his fighting ability, his agility, his muscle mass, things like that. He will have a base form, none of which are illustrated at the moment on this promo material, but I will illustrate that eventually. And during his story, he will not only become the superhuman, he will also be responsible for the death of Mimir, and this death will cause him to essentially freak out and be transported to this little pocket dimension, which is reminiscent of hell. And it's essentially a personal hell. If you've played Final Fantasy VII, at the end of that game, you go into Cloud's own mind to fight Sephiroth one last time. Think of it a little bit like that. It's not a literal place to be, it's more of a figurative place. And I think this is going to be sort of a demonstration or a representation of fighting your own demons, because to escape this place, which he will be stuck in for a long period of time, he will have to defeat the creature within the dimension, which is based on his biggest fear, which is the Japanese, or should say Asian mythology creature of the three-legged crow, also known as the Yatagarasu. I want to take a bit of inspiration from mythology. I do love mythology a lot, so that's where that's coming from. Rizzo's abilities will be semi-in par with something you'd see from Goku, but also there'll be a lot of original things as well. So yeah, that's Rizzo essentially. His story will be the one that I will release first, because apart from the prequel/prelude, his story canonically will take place first until the latter half of the story, which will be taking part at the same time as everything else. So that is Rizzo. And our next character, our last main character, is Preston. And this shirt design has changed. I no longer have this in the middle, I now have just a red dot. Because the original idea for Preston, I need to redesign this illustration then. The original idea for Preston was to have, to explain the shirt, Dragon Ball Z was going to be a program within his world, because I was going to have Preston originally from another dimension, from Dawson, which is why they look so similar. However, this is not going to work, so I'm now going to have to say Dawson is from Asgard, which is another realm. Preston from Earth, and Rizzo also from Earth. And Dragon Ball Z does exist as a program in this universe. However, this is now changed due to publishing reasons and just design issues, because this would take forever to draw out every single time. So yeah, Preston is a sword wielder, as we can tell. The sword designed after the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII. This is his inspirational element. And his story is he lives on the south side of the world. In our world we have, I think, like 8 continents. This world only has 2, the north and the south, and they are divided. The north is thriving like our world would be now, whereas the south is suffering and they live in absolute poverty. They live in ruin, as you can see. This is the thing behind you now, this little broken aircraft. This is essentially a shelter that Preston calls his home. They are not exactly privileged people. But Preston one day lost his wife to the government, which has caused the South to go the way it has. The North has its own government, the South has its own government, apart from the South's government is incredibly massive compared to the North. And it's incredibly corrupt as well, which causes them to trial out all these nuclear weapons because they aspire to take over the North, which will never happen. And it's caused the destruction of the South continent, people to live the way they live, and also the unfortunate death of Preston's parents and eventual wife, which drives him to take matters into his own hands to restore what his continent once was, which was he calls it a utopia, but it's just more like a developed city, something like that. And that's roughly it, essentially, which is when one day he'll go to a government base. I'm having it so there's multiple bases and then multiple members of this government. He'll visit a base one day and find the Buster Sword, which he picks up to wield, and he finds it gives him incredible abilities because as a regular human with nothing wrong with his genes, unlike Rizzo, Preston is just a normal. He's just another human. He can't do anything of any worth. But this sword, when wielded, will give him the power to have these incredible abilities, such as energy attacks, incredible speed, incredible power, fighting knowledge, and essentially just give him the advantage, which he'll then use to essentially take down the government and find the F-Stone, because he knows through rumour, speculation and word from other officials after research that the South government is in possession of the F-Stone, and he wants to use the F-Stone to give himself developmental powers to essentially restore the South, because he believes the F-Stone, after rumour from multiple people, he believes the F-Stone has the ability to give him power to create. Think, Beerus has destruction power. The F-Stone, if cracked, will spew a mist that will absorb into his body to give him powers, essentially, to create. And this is where the final episode comes into place after that event, which I'm not going to talk about too much just yet. Essentially, that's where the fallacy part of it comes in, because it turns out that is completely bullshit. It's just word of mouth and rumour, and it's going to lead to something catastrophic if not taken care of correctly. So yeah, Preston thinks of himself as the saviour of the South, an avenger, something like that. But realistically, he's just turned into an absolute murderer, someone out of control completely. And yeah, that's about it. So we'll move on now to part of the final episode, which is when our characters finally meet and they have a fight, because they all have connections in one way or another to another character, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But Preston has no connection to either of these two, but Dawson has a connection to Rizzo because Rizzo killed Mimir. And essentially this fight is going to begin with Rizzo and Dawson having a fight, which Preston then intervenes to prevent this fight because they are all trapped within side of this little, like a pocket dimension essentially, because that's what the F-Stone created. Once cracked, the mist spewed out and it trapped them all inside of a pocket dimension. And after the fight, it's Preston who, within reason, tells them that this is his fault and they now need to work together to escape because they're trapped. They are basically trapped. They have no way out. But Rizzo, having experience with forms of pocket dimension, says they need to defeat its host and then they can escape. Dawson knows where they are because the F-Stone is directly linked with Odin and Mimir. Odin created it to seal somebody away years ago who was a threat to the world. So they all have an idea of where, somebody has an idea of where they are, somebody knows how to escape, and the other person is in fault for everything. So it only makes sense for them to work together. And the tagline of Stone Fallacy, as you can see above, Rage, Revenge, Redemption, comes into place through the characters as well. Redemption for Rizzo, Revenge for Dawson, and Rage for Preston. So yeah, that's where that comes from. Essentially, the start of the final episode will be a fight between the three main characters until the villain of the story is finally revealed, which I will give you some insight into now. So the main villain is designed after Zack Fair from Final Fantasy VII, and his name is subsequently Fur. Fur was a super soldier way before the time of our main trio, who was basically he lived in the north, and he was, like I said, a super weapon. He was used for absolutely. Yeah, he was essentially used as a one-man army. Whenever armies came to invade civilizations or castles and things like that of the north, Fur was sent onto it straight away to defeat them, which was known as the Continental War, because a lot of these armies came from the south to invade the north, and Fur was basically the protector of the people. That was all well and fine until a giant army from the south, absolutely colossal, was sent to the north, and it was too much for even Fur to handle, as this artillery was incredibly advanced from all the military research they had been conducting. It was too much to handle, essentially. And this is when Fur consulted the scientists of the north, who have been trialling and developing a super soldier serum, which will turn them into what they called a superhuman at the time. This is a completely different superhuman to what Rizzo is. This is an artificial superhuman who was designed to have incredible powers from this serum they developed. But, of course, human trials hadn't been put in place, but out of desperation, Fur did take this serum, which split him into two. I'm still trying to work out how I'm going to do this, because I don't want them both to exist at the same time, but I don't also want it to be a transformation because of some big differences. So, upon trialing himself, oh, by the way, Fur was the original inheritor of the Buster Sword. I don't know what I'm going to call it in this universe. I don't want to call it the Buster Sword, but he originally had the sword, which was another thing that he was powerful anyway, but the sword allowed him to have some extreme power. And after taking the serum, like I said, what's going to basically happen is he will begin to mutate, essentially, and he'll develop a second soul, something like that. Like I said, it's very early stages. This will be subject to change. He'll develop a second soul, which will then come out into play and take over his body, changing his body completely to be Clink, which is not a final name. I do want to change this name. I don't like it, but at the minute we're going to go with Clink. I don't want it to be called Clink because it's incredibly unintimidating, and this is supposed to be a very powerful and intimidating character. So, of course, designed after Cloud Strife, and the reason I've decided to go back and forth with Cloud and Zack is because those two are very similar in the original game they come from, and I think sort of as opposites of each other this would work. So Clink would be shorter than Zack. Fur, sorry, Jesus. He'll be shorter than Fur. Different hair, of course, different body proportions and things like that, but the difference is Clink is incredibly more powerful and dangerous than Fur, because he has no remorse, no care for the people, and he essentially lives his own journey. And think of it a little bit like Green Goblin. When Norman Osborn's in control, he does his own thing, but when the Goblin's in control, Norman can't control what's going on, and the Goblin's incredibly powerful. Think of it a bit like that. Apart from Fur is democratic, Clink is autocratic. When Clink is first unleashed, the first thing he does is destroy his own empire. He destroys the army that's going to destroy his empire, but then tries to destroy the empire himself. And this will lead to incredible conflicts and incredible destruction and death of many, many people, which is when Odin from Asgard decides to step in and essentially creates the F-Stone to seal Fur/Clink inside of it. When they first initially get sealed, he will revert back into Fur as sort of a base form. But when our characters arrive and defeat Fur, or so they think, that's when the other side of him takes control again, like a little bit like Green Goblin or Eddie and Venom, and that's when Clink is unleashed once again. And yeah, that's the idea behind the villain. Like I said, early stages, subject to change. And that is essentially all the characters, apart from one last character, which I'm calling Rizom. I'm going to spare the details for now, but based on the design and the name, if you guys can figure something out with it, go nuts. But this is the design and the art for Rizom. So yes, Stone Fallacy has been in its design phases in terms of like art for just coming up to a year now, and its writing phases / plot development and character development idea drafting has been in play for 2 years now, and I am getting closer to getting it to a phase or a stage where it is ready to be written and released. So in terms of the release and how you guys can read it when it's finished, that is, I'll keep you informed on the process of development. I will be releasing it as not only a written book, probably published on Amazon. I will also be recording myself reading it on YouTube, which will be free of charge to watch, and of course, but obviously the Amazon is to support me if you want to. Where I'll be reading it out, fully voiced characters, and it will also have music, which is what I'm currently developing now. I'm not making my own music because it's too much hassle, and licensed music will be more attractive. I'm not going to get the license, so I'm not going to make any profit from the YouTube videos, and I'm not going to show off the soundtrack today. That's for another video, because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the soundtrack and what tracks to include for each episode. So yeah, that is Stone Fallacy in a nutshell. And this is a passion project. That's all it is. It's a complete and utter passion project. I do not want to make incredible profits from this. I do not want a #1 bestseller. I just want to write something as a Dragon Ball fan that I think is appealing to me, and something that can hopefully appeal to many others as well. I'm in love with Dragon Ball as a franchise and its art style, and it's inspired me to do many drawings and many other things in my life. And now it's inspiring me to write a story. This is my form of thank you and appreciation and tribute to Akira Toriyama, and a demonstration of my ability as an artist, and also an experiment to have an idea of my ability as a story writer, which I have not developed at all. I'm just going off of what I already know as a story writer, which is nothing. So yeah, like I said, this is not going to be an A-class novel. It's not going to be A-class literature. It's just going to be a fan project that I hope you guys can enjoy just as much as I'm going to enjoy creating. So I hope you are excited to hear more about Stone Fallacy. I'll be sharing more information when possible. When I finally got the track list together, I'll be making a video showcasing the soundtrack. And yeah, when the first episode is finished and ready to be published, I'll be publishing it as its own individual episode. So I hope you can look forward to it. So thank you all for listening. This is why I've been absent for so long, because I've had no motivation to make any other content, because there's nothing to make content about. So I've been developing this story quite a lot. So yeah, thank you all for listening again, once again. I will see you in the next one, whenever that might be. And yeah, more information coming soon, hopefully.